Hearts united, soldier and loyal K-9 discover a crying girl in the snow. Incredible truth revealed. Jake Thompson trudged through the fresh snow, his breath fogging in the icy air while Max, his loyal K-9 companion, bounded alongside him. It was supposed to be a peaceful night, a perfect winter's evening, yet the memories of war clawed at him, chasing the serenity away. The crisp air tingled with promise, but the shadows inside him loomed large and dark. Small-town Maplewood embraced winter like a blanket, but Jake often felt cold and distant from its warmth. As they wandered deeper into the park, something caught Jake's eye, a flash of color against the pearly white snow. He blinked, taking a moment to register the sight. There, on a bench, sat a small girl, bundled in a purple coat. Her small shoulders shook softly, tears glistening on her cheeks, catching the light like pieces of broken glass. A pang shot through Jake's heart, causing him to halt. Memories surged, his own family's sacrifices, the grief and loss that seemed so familiar. With cautious steps, he approached her. "Hey there, are you okay?" His voice rumbled gently as he knelt beside her, Max sitting patiently at his side. She sniffled, looking up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. "I miss my mom," she whispered, her small voice breaking like fragile ice. Jake's chest tightened at her words. I know what that feels like," he said, the warmth of empathy sparking within him. He hadn't expected this connection. "I lost people too, in a different way, but still it hurts." And just like that, a thread of understanding began to weave between them. Each visit to that bench turned into moments of sharing. They talked about silly things, like the shapes of clouds or the way snowflakes danced, but Jake felt the heaviness of her grief like an echo inside him. They laughed, cried, and slowly, silently, began to heal. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their bond grew, Jake felt a lightness creeping back into his world. The whispers of town filled the air, first murmurs of surprise and curiosity about the soldier and the little girl. But rumors can twist easily, spreading faster than the wind. Just when it felt like healing was within reach, the stories began, shadows of his past, flares of violence that flickered in the corners of the town's memory. At the next town meeting, Jake faced the crowd, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. "I'm not who you think I am," he started, stumbling over his words as the weight seemed to crush him. "I'm trying to be more than my past. I want to stand here with you all. For Lily. For myself." He scanned the sea of faces, some filled with hope, others with doubt. Could he find redemption? Would they allow him to prove that everyone carries their scars, but they don't define us? In that moment, the stakes felt sky-high, and Jake stood vulnerable in front of Maplewood, facing not just their judgment but his own fears as well. Would the town lift him, or would they let fear keep them apart forever? The room fell silent, and Jake felt every heartbeat echo against the walls. He stood there, exposed. The anxious murmurs flitted through the crowd like the breeze outside, each whisper a reminder of his past, each gaze a weight against his shoulders. He could see Mrs. Anderson, the town librarian, narrow her eyes, filled with uncertainty. But then, across the way, sat a young couple with their baby, glancing at him with something else, compassion? Understanding? Jake, a familiar voice called from the back, breaking the stillness. It was Sheriff Mendez. The sheriff had been in Maplewood long enough to know the story of every scratch on the road and crack in the buildings. "You don't have to bear this alone. Just tell us what you need." Jake swallowed, the tightness in his throat threatening to choke him. "I just want to help. I want to help Lily." He let that name hang in the air, a quiet reminder of the girl waiting for him in the park. It was where everything changed for him. Where he found his purpose. The crowd shifted, some nodding, others still skeptical. This was a tight-knit town, they cherished routine and tradition. But what if this was different? What if they could grow? As he locked eyes with the sheriff, Jake felt a rush of hope. I may have stumbled into darkness, but I see light in this little girl. I want to show her she isn't alone just as I wasn't alone in my darkest days. The tension in the room shifted slightly. People exchanged glances, some faces softening. A single voice piped up from the middle, "We've all lost someone." It was Mr. Adams, an elderly veteran. Life has its shadows, but we can't let them consume us. If we stand together, we can make this town better. Encouraged, sparks of conversation ignited across the gathering. Yes. Someone shouted. Others began voicing their own pain, their own losses. Each confession was like pulling back a curtain, revealing the struggles that lay within. Jake's heart raced, warmth blooming in his chest as he realized they were all connected by grief. Each shared story bridged the divides he thought he'd have to face alone. It was in that moment he understood, they needed each other, and together they could begin to heal. After the meeting, a few people approached him, an invitation to share coffee, stories, and laughter. He felt gratitude wash over him. It was a small step, but it was a step nonetheless. That evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jake found himself back at the park. Max wagged his tail, but his eyes were fixed on a little girl waiting on the bench, her purple coat like a beacon in the gathering twilight. "Lily," he called, approaching her with a smile. "You won't believe what happened at the meeting." And there, in the fading light, he poured out the hope gathering in his heart. He could not erase her pain, but he could help weave a new story together. Lily's face brightened as she listened, and with each word, the shadows began to lift. But just as Jake felt himself rising, a chill suddenly rushed through the air. The sound of a car engine echoed nearby, too loud, too threatening. "What's that?" Lily asked, eyes wide with fear. Jake turned, his heart racing again. Because something was amiss. In the town where he hoped to find solace, could danger still be lurking just around the corner? Jake's instincts kicked into high gear. The rhythmic thrum of the engine grew louder as the headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the park's pathways with a harsh, white light. His gut twisted, something wasn't right. "Stay here, Lily," he said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind inside him. He moved closer to the sound, his eyes scanning the shadows. The familiar trees that once felt comforting now loomed like guardians of fear. He whistled for Max, who tensed beside him, ready to protect. As they crept forward, Jake spotted the car, a dull gray sedan parked unnaturally close to the playground. The engine idled for a moment longer, and then silence enveloped the area again, a pregnant pause that made the night feel heavier. "Let's check it out," Jake murmured, glancing back at Lily, who watched with wide eyes, filled with confusion. Max padded forward, his ears perked, sniffing the air. As they approached the vehicle, a figure emerged from the passenger side, a woman with dark glasses and a scarf pulled tight around her face. She looked around quickly, scanning the park like she was searching for something, or someone. "Hey!" Jake shouted, trying to project confidence. "What are you doing here?" The woman froze, guilt and surprise flickering across her features. I was just passing through," she stammered, a tremor in her voice. "I thought I saw someone who needed help." Jake stepped closer. "What kind of help?" "You can talk to us, we were just with a little girl." Before he could finish, a piercing cry sliced through the night, a faint, desperate wail. It drowned out the engine noise, wrapping around Jake and sending chills down his spine. Without a second thought, he dashed toward the sound, guided by instinct. "Stay close, Max." They weaved through the trees, the wailing growing louder, guiding them toward the source. Heart pounding, Jake felt a mix of urgency and dread. What if they found something terrible? What if he couldn't help? They emerged in a small clearing where faint moonlight illuminated a small bundle on the ground, a child, shivering and crying. "Oh no," he breathed. Kneeling beside her, Jake reached out gently. "Hey, it's okay. We're here to help. What's your name?" The girl looked up, her eyes swollen with tears and fear. "I'm Emma," she whispered, her tiny frame shaking. "My mom, she's gone. I just wanted to find her." Max stepped closer, offering comfort with his presence, lying down beside the girl. "Emma," Jake spoke softly, "can you tell me where you last saw her? We're going to find her together." The little girl shook her head, but desperation shone in her eyes. "She told me to wait, but I got scared." Panic surged within Jake. It echoed off the walls of the moment. In one afternoon, he had begun seeking a future, but now he faced the threatening darkness that followed him. Just then, the sound of footsteps broke the tense stillness. The woman from the car was back, her expression unreadable. Something flickered in her eyes as she surveyed the situation, and Jake felt a new wave of uneasiness crash over him. "What are you doing?" he demanded, standing protectively in front of Emma. "Who are you?" But the woman only took a step back, glancing around cautiously. "I was trying to find the girl's mother," she said, her voice shaky. "There's something you need to know. Something dangerous is happening in this town." Jake's heart leaped into his throat. What could she be hiding? What had he unleashed upon this quiet night? As the shadows stretched around them, he realized this was just the beginning of something far larger than he ever imagined. "Please, just tell me what you know," Jake urged, feeling the stakes rise. The woman hesitated, her breath hitching in her throat, as though she was wrestling with a truth she feared to reveal. And in that moment, everything changed. "Please, just tell me what you know," Jake pressed again, his voice low but firm, every fiber of his being on edge. The woman's gaze darted away as if the truth was a weight she couldn't bear. "It's bigger than you think," she murmured. "This isn't just about Emma's mom. It's about people disappearing. And they aren't just lost. There's something sinister happening in the town." Jake's heart raced. How could he make sense of this? The coldness in the air wrapped around him like ice, and he felt the clenching anxiety in his gut. He glanced at Emma, who still shivered beside Max, seeking comfort in the dog's warmth. "Emma, we're not going to let anyone hurt you. I promise," he said softly, trying to instill some hope. The woman cleared her throat, her presence a stark contrast to the calm trees that surrounded them. "I didn't mean to frighten you, but I've seen this too many times: kids missing, families shattered. The town is too quiet at night, and it's easy to vanish." Jake swallowed hard. What does that have to do with Emma? Before she could answer, another shrill cry pierced the night, this time louder, echoing through the darkness. Emma clamped a hand over her mouth, wide-eyed and shaking. Panic ensued within Jake, a gnawing dread tightening his chest. "Stay here," he said, stepping forward instinctively, the need to protect overwhelming, but the woman grabbed his arm, urgency flashing in her eyes. "You need to listen. We can't stay here. If they find us, it'll be too late." "What do you mean they?" Jake asked, voice rising like the tension in the air. "They're monitoring the park looking for signs of life. Please, if we stay here, we'll attract them," she urged, her fear palpable. Jake's mind raced. Every instinct screamed that they needed to move, but he couldn't leave Emma behind, a fragile flicker of hope lost in the chaos. "Emma, we are going to find your mom, but we need to move fast. Can you walk?" he asked, kneeling to meet her frightened gaze. Emma nodded, tears still welling in her eyes, but the fear was fading as Jake enveloped her hand in his. "Follow me closely. Max will lead the way," Jake instructed, signaling for the dog to take point. The woman hesitated but then nodded, her resolve firming. "This way," she urged, veering toward a narrow path flanked by overhanging branches. The shadows seemed to press in closer as they hurried forward, the night alive with distant sounds, rustling leaves, scattered whispers of something lurking just beyond their sight. As they weaved through the trees, Jake could feel tension radiating from the woman beside him. "What do you know? Please, just tell me everything," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, her lips pressed together, and after a moment, she spoke. "I used to work at the community center. I noticed kids coming in alone, their families reporting them missing. They would tell me they didn't want to go home. I didn't make the connection until too late." "I need more than that," Jake replied, urgency flooding his voice. "What are they doing?" "They don't want families together. They prey on fears, they lure kids away," she murmured, fear flashing in her eyes. "And it won't stop. They just keep coming." Jake's heart sank. This wasn't just about Emma anymore. It was a web of darkness threatening everyone he loved. He could already feel the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders, but now it was deeper, more profound. As they reached the edge of the park, a small figure emerged from the corner of his eye, a flicker of movement. "Stop!" Jake shouted, readying himself for anything, every sense heightened. The woman's eyes widened. "It can't be, they're here." The chilling realization slid down Jake's spine. What were they up against, and would they be able to protect Emma or themselves? In that moment, something emerged from the shadows, and Jake knew their lives would never be the same again. What had he unleashed upon this quiet night? Jake's pulse quickened as the figure stepped into the dim light filtering through the trees. It was a girl, no older than Emma, her face streaked with dirt and tears, fear dancing in her eyes. She looked lost, truly lost, in a way that made Jake's heart twist. "Help me!" she cried, breaking the tenuous silence that hung heavy around them. Her voice was hoarse, filled with desperation. "Stay back!" Jake shouted, instinctively positioning himself in front of Emma, holding her hand tighter. His instincts surged, torn between caution and compassion. "What happened?" he demanded, scanning the darkened woods for any sign of what might be lurking out of sight. The girl stepped forward, trembling. "They took my brother. I saw them." A fresh wave of tears fell down her cheeks, contrasting sharply against the dirt smeared across her face. "Who took him?" The woman beside Jake leaned in closer, her features drawn tight with concern. "Can you tell us where you last saw him?" "In the old part of town, by the library. I thought it was just a game, but then the lights, I saw them. They were all around." Her words tumbled out in a rush, as if giving voice to her fears would somehow ease the weight of them. Jake's heart sank further. "What lights?" He felt Emma shift next to him, her small hand lingering in his grasp, seeking reassurance. "The yellow ones, they glow, and they call to us." The girl choked on her words, her breath hitching between sobs. "They don't want us to leave." A chilling silence followed, the enormity of her revelation settling in like a thick fog. That's what the woman was talking about, Jake thought, the urgency growing heavy upon him. It was becoming clear, this wasn't just about Emma's mother. It was far, far worse. "Listen, you're safe now," Jake said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We need to get all of you out of here." "Where's your brother now?" I don't know. I ran when they took him. I was so scared." The girl fell silent, her fear palpable, seeping into the atmosphere around them. The woman spoke again, her own fear giving way to determination. "We can't stay here much longer. We have to move." Her gaze flicked to the shadows that seemed to creep closer, relentless and hungry. Jake looked at Emma. "Can you stay brave just a little longer?" Emma nodded, the resolve growing stronger in her eyes. "I can do it." "Then let us get moving," Jake urged, turning to the girl. "Stick close to us, all right? We'll help you find your brother." With shaky breaths, the girl nodded, stepping closer to them. The group hesitated only for a moment, before Jake led the way back into the thicket. The trees wrapped around them like sentinels, shadows dancing menacingly at their heels as they moved. As they continued down the tightening path, a chill crept deeper into Jake's bones. He could feel it, the sense that they were being watched, that whatever lurked behind the trees was already aware of their every move. "Just stay focused on each other," he whispered, the words a lifeline in the suffocating darkness. "We're getting out of here together." But as they reached another clearing, a sharp glance from the woman made him freeze in place. "Something isn't right," she murmured, pointing toward the far edge of the clearing where faint yellow lights flickered like apparitions. Jake fought back a wave of dread pooling in his stomach. What now? The lights flickered again, dancing like wraiths in the night. And from them, shadows began to unfurl. They were drawn toward the eerie glow, and Jake felt time slowing as he processed the reality creeping closer. "Run!" he yelled as the lights swelled, illuminating a hulking figure behind them, monstrous, with eyes that glinted with a terrible hunger. Jake took Emma's hand, his heart pounding in his ears. Would they escape this time? What awaited them beyond the horizon of that terrifying light? Adrenaline surged as they bolted into the unknown, driven by desperation. But what if the shadows were only the beginning? They sprinted through the trees, the whisper of branches clawing at their backs. Jake glanced over his shoulder, the fading yellow lights flickering like dying stars. The hulking figure loomed closer, its presence a dark promise of horrors unspoken. "Keep moving," he shouted, feeling the weight of Emma's small hand in his grip. She was running hard, face set with fierce determination. The girl, whose name they still didn't know, stumbled behind them, panic lighting her eyes with every step. "Where are we going?" she gasped, breathless and scared. "Just follow us," Jake shouted, trying to maintain a sense of urgency that he could barely conjure. His heart raced. He couldn't let any of them get caught. They burst out of the trees and into a ragged old road, the asphalt cracked and faded, almost swallowed alive by the encroaching woods. Jake could see the outlines of old buildings peeking into view, their rotting structures standing as silent witnesses to whatever evil lay amidst the yellow glow. "Over there." Emma pointed toward a dilapidated house that looked like it might fall apart with the next gust of wind. "We should go in." "No." Jake's heart sank at the thought, but time wasn't on their side. "We can't go into any buildings. We don't know what's waiting inside." The girl's breaths came in shaky bursts now. "Please, I don't want to die. I don't want them to take me too." Jake glanced at the shadows creeping at the edge of the clearing, panic mounting in his throat. They could feel that fear digging its claws into their chests, a fear born not just of the shadows but from the unknown. "But what if we can't get away?" the girl quavered, her eyes wide. "Trust me," Jake said firmly, trying to anchor them all with strength he didn't fully feel. "We're stronger together. We can't give up." With that, Jake resumed their flight, dashing down the road, each footstep sending pulses of dread up his legs. He could feel the weight of fear within the girl and Emma, a tether that bound them closer, urging him to protect them at all costs. Their path twisted toward the library the girl had mentioned. Jake's gut tightened. Was that where the lights were calling from? Was that where her brother was? They rounded a corner, and suddenly the library loomed before them, a massive, foreboding structure. The windows were dark, its aged facade beckoning with an eerie allure. "Can we hide inside?" Emma suggested, her voice wavering, edged with hope and fear. "No. We need to see what is going on first," Jake exclaimed, skidding to a stop as they approached the entrance. Just then, another set of flickering lights danced beyond the library's decrepit walls. A chorus of distant laughter echoed, a haunting mix of joy and terror. Jake felt the swell of panic rise in his throat as he caught the line of shadows merging like liquid darkness, threatening to spill into their sanctuary. What if they couldn't save the girl's brother? "We have to see what's happening," Jake whispered, feeling a heavy resolve settle over him. "But we need to stay together." He turned to the girls, determination etched onto his face. The moment we go in, we stick together, no one gets left behind. Okay. Emma nodded, gripping his hand tightly, eyes filled with both fear and fierce bravery. And in that moment, the girl seemed to be drawing strength from his resolve, standing poised at the mouth of the darkened library. As they poised to step inside, a flicker of movement caught Jake's eye. He frowned, catching sight of a face just beyond the corner of the building. "Did you see that?" he murmured, adrenaline coursing through him. The face vanished, but the feeling of being watched returned with renewed intensity. Jake's heart raced even faster. Who, or what, was lurking in the shadows? Taking a deep breath, Jake stepped forward, pushing open the library doors, leading them into the depths of uncertain terror. What awaited them inside, answers or deeper darkness? The heavy library doors creaked open, a sound that echoed ominously in the stillness. The dusty air rushed to greet them, filled with the musty smell of aged paper and something unsettling that lingered just below the surface. Jake paused, glancing back at the girls. Their faces mirrored his apprehension, eyes wide and breathing shallow. "Stick close," he whispered, stepping inside. The shadows seemed to cling to the walls, twisting and dancing flickeringly in the desperate glow of the outside light. He could almost hear the laughter, clearer now, merging with whispers that curled like smoke around them. Emma tugged at his shirt, her voice a soft whimper. "What if we're too late?" Jake clenched his jaw, unwilling to consider that. "No one's lost yet," he replied, forcing a confident smile. "We'll find her brother." Yet as they ventured deeper, the library revealed its secrets. The shelves were stacked high with books, but many lay toppled, as if a storm had swept through and knocked them aside. A single chair in the center of the room rocked slightly, as if someone had just risen from it. "What happened here?" the girl whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know, but we have to keep going," Jake said, trying to sound brave despite the chill creeping up his spine. They moved cautiously, the floorboards creaking with every step, announcing their presence like a warning bell. The whispers grew louder as they approached a narrow hallway shrouded in darkness, shadows flicking erratically against the walls. Suddenly, a figure dashed past the end of the hall, a blur of movement, just out of reach. Emma gasped, hiding behind Jake, while the girl stood frozen in fear. "Did you see that?" Jake's heart raced, his instincts flaring. "Stay here." He stepped forward, drawn to the movement as if it were a magnet. "Wait." Emma pulled at his arm, but he shook her off. "We need to help her," he urged. Without waiting for an answer, Jake plunged into the darkness, adrenaline overriding his caution. Each step felt like a leap into an abyss, uncertainty wrapping around him like a suffocating blanket. The hallway widened into a small chamber, dimly lit by flickers dancing from a single candle. There, standing by an ancient desk, was a girl. She looked about Emma's age, her hair wild and eyes wide with fear, tears glistening on her cheeks. "Please, you have to help me," she cried, her voice cracking. "Who are you?" Jake stepped closer, but the weight of dread shifted as he sensed something off in the air. "Where is your brother?" As if sensing something ominous, the girl shook her head. "I hear them. The voices always come for me. I didn't want to hear, but they won't stop. They're getting closer." "Who's getting closer?" Emma's voice was firm now, a flicker of determination breaking through her fear. "You're safe with us." The candle flickered wildly, the shadows dancing as if alive, wrapping around them like tendrils. "They want to take me, to turn me into one of them," the girl cried, pointing towards the back of the room where the shadows thickened, coalescing into shapes that seemed to stretch towards them. Jake's heart thundered in his chest. "No one is going to take you." He glanced in the doorway, where the girls awaited. "Get ready to run, and stay behind me." Just then, a whisper echoed through the hall, low and sinister. "Join us." The air thickened, and the lights dimmed. Jake could feel the encroaching darkness wrapping around each corner, growing more suffocating. We have to go, now. But as they turned to run, the shadows seemed to pulse and swirl, blocking their path. The laughter grew louder, intertwining with the whispers, filling the space with a chilling urgency. How could they escape, and more importantly, what had they just stumbled into? With desperation clawing at him, Jake took a step forward, prepared to confront whatever darkness lay ahead. But at that moment, he caught sight of something glimmering at the depths of the shadows. What did it mean? And would they be able to uncover the truth before it consumed them? The shadows shifted, swirling like living smoke, and Jake stood rooted to the spot. The glimmer at the edge of darkness beckoned him, a small beacon in the overwhelming ink of dread. He didn't know what it was, but something deep in his gut urged him to reach for it. Jake! Emma's voice broke through the fog of fear. We need to go. But he couldn't tear himself away from that light. It flickered insistently, almost alive. He felt the weight of the girl's eyes on him, a silent plea woven into her desperate gaze. I'm here. He shouted, forcing himself against the swell of panic. We're going to figure this out. As he moved closer to the sparkling light, the echoes of laughter intensified, mocking and twisted. It felt as if the very walls were closing in, pressing against him with every heartbeat. The glimmer took shape, an old locket half buried in the dust. As he picked it up, the whispers seemed to hush, waiting, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Jake, look out! Emma's scream shook him from his trance that he spun around just in time to see the shadows surge forward, a tidal wave of darkness with outstretched fingers. Emma and the other girl were grappling, trying to pull each other away from the looming figures, but the darkness was relentless. No! Jake yelled. He clutched the locket tightly. There was something in his grip, an instinctive understanding that it could mean hope. Focus! He shouted. We need to leave. We have to find a way. You don't understand. The girl gasped, tears streaming down her cheeks. They only want me. You'll be safe if you run. Please, don't shut up. Jake shouted, his determination surging. I'm not leaving anyone behind. The air felt electric, crackling around them with tension as the shadows pulled closer. As if by some unseen force, Jake stepped forward, holding the locket out in front of him. Whatever you are, I want to let you take her. The shadows hesitated, flickering in hesitation. Jake felt the weight of time pressing against them, the laughter now a high-pitched wail echoing in his ears. With everything in him, he willed the light of the locket to break through. You don't own her. In that instant, a bright flash erupted from the locket, illuminating the chamber with a warmth that felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. The shadows recoiled, wincing as if stung. Now! Run! Jake shouted, his heart pounding like thunder in his chest. Emma took the girl's hand, pulling her along as they charged for the door. The shadows writhed in agony, their forms blurring as they shrieked, but the light from the locket pushed them back. Energized by determination, they sprinted through the narrow hallway. Together, they burst into the main room of the library, where the whispers turned into panicked shouts, echoing through the cavernous space. They skidded to a stop when they reached the heavy library doors. Push! Jake yelled, and together they shoved against the dark wood, adrenaline surging. It felt impossibly heavy, but with one final heave, the doors creaked open, sunlight poured in like a cleansing wave. The girls stumbled out, gasping for air. Jake followed, looking back one last time. The shadows, now agitated and swirling, could only linger at the threshold of the light, unable to chase them into the sunlit world outside. Did we lose them? Emma panted, checking over her shoulder, eyes wide and anxious, but the girl remained still, her face pale as she clutched her arm. No, they're still here, she whispered, the fear creeping back into her eyes. I can feel them. Jake's heart sank, dread washing over him once more. Then we need to find a way to stop them, for good. What did the locket mean? And what was waiting for them as they plunged deeper into this mystery? The shadows may have been kept at bay, but the truth was still lurking just beneath the surface, ready to reveal itself. The sunlight, while warm and bright, felt like a fragile shield against the lingering shadows. Jake squinted against the glare, his pulse racing, each beat echoing in the silence that followed their escape. He turned his gaze to Emma and the girl, whose faces were still drawn tight with fear. "What do we do now?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake took a deep breath, searching for an answer, anything that could reassure them. He held the locket, its surface cool against his palm, and felt a sense of responsibility surge within him. "We need to understand this locket. It's got to mean something." The girl's hand trembled as she wiped away her tears. I think it's a key. A key to something they want, something they need." She looked at the locket with hollow eyes, as if it were a ticking bomb. "If we don't figure out what it unlocks, they will never let me go." "Okay, let us sit down," Jake said, leading them to a row of benches nearby. The library loomed behind them like a brooding giant, but the light felt full of possibility. He opened his palm, revealing the locket to both girls. It was adorned with intricate designs that seemed to dance in the sunlight, a stark contrast to the darkness they had just escaped. "What do you see?" he asked. Emma leaned closer, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It looks old, very old. Those symbols, maybe they're part of a story, or some kind of warning?" "Warning?" the girl echoed, her voice trembling. "What if it's telling us to leave? To run far away from whatever is tied to that?" "No," Jake interrupted, "this is our best chance to fight back. We can't keep running. I refuse to hide in fear. That's not who we are." With newfound resolve, Jake studied the locket again. The flickering light from inside it seemed to pulse with energy. "What if we can harness this light? What if it can help us push back the shadows? If I'm tied to them, then maybe I can't help," the girl said, voicing the doubt that clung to them like a shadow. "What if I lead you to danger instead? It's worth the risk," Jake said passionately. "We face danger every day, and we've made it so far together. Let us make a plan." As they huddled, Jake felt the weight of something deeper, a bond forming between them under the radiant sunlight. He sensed the girl had suffered longer than she could express. Emma glanced at Jake, her uncertainty giving way to a flicker of hope. "What if we can find out where the shadows come from?" Emma suggested tentatively. "Maybe it's tied to the locket and us." "Yes," Jake exclaimed. "We can harness whatever truth the locket holds. Together, we are stronger than the darkness." They stood together, united in purpose, yet the girl gasped suddenly, clutching her arm again. "They're close. I can feel them." Jake's heart raced again. This was the urgency they hadn't escaped. "We'll figure it out. But we have to get moving. What can you tell us about their presence?" "It's like a storm brewing," she said, eyes wide and alarmed. "Darkness doesn't just want me, it wants to spread. Then let us take that locket somewhere safe, somewhere we can discover its truth," Jake urged, gathering their strength. "We can't let fear win." The girl nodded, determination washing over her features. "Okay. Maybe we can find that place together." As they started walking, an uneasy tension crept in. The shadows were not far behind. But Jake kept the locket close, trusting that the light it held could guide them. "What if the answers we find change everything?" Emma asked softly. Jake looked at her, resolve unwavering. "Change can be good. Sometimes, you have to light the way into the darkness, even if it's scary." The shadows loomed just out of sight, but they pushed forward, ready to confront whatever truths awaited them. A chilly breeze rustled through the trees, the air thick with uncertainty. Would the truth they uncovered bind them closer, or tear them apart? And as they continued, the echoes of laughter returned, eerily close, signaling the final test ahead. The journey through the library had transformed the once terrified girls into brave allies. Jake, Emma, and the other girls stood together at the intersection of fear and hope, holding tightly to the locket. Every shadow that flickered outside the safety of sunlight added weight to their determination. "We're not just running anymore," Jake said. "We're here to fight." The three of them moved cautiously toward the edge of town, where the whispers of the shadows grew louder again. It was almost as if they were beckoning, drawing them closer to the danger. Jake clenched the locket tightly against his heart, feeling its warmth radiate against the cold that seeped through the air. "We need to take this to the old oak tree in the square, the one where the town holds its gatherings. It might have stories about this town, about the shadows," he suggested, the resolve in his voice casting a net of confidence over his companions. Emma's eyes sparkled, capturing the essence of his determination. "Then let us get to the tree. Maybe we can dig up the truth." As they fled down the deserted street, shadows crept, swirling like ghosts behind them, but Jake refused to look back. With every footstep, they anchored themselves to one another, a trio of light and strength pushing against the encroaching darkness. Approaching the tree, its gnarled branches stretched out like arms ready to embrace them. The old oak stood steadfast, a sentinel that seemed to recognize their plight. "Underneath the tree, there are carvings," the girl said, her voice steady despite the tremors of anxiety. "My dad told me they hold secrets." Jake knelt down, heart racing, feeling the cool earth beneath his fingers. Brushing aside layers of fallen leaves and debris, he revealed an intricate carving markings that bore resemblance to symbols on the locket. "These they match," he exclaimed, adrenaline surging through him. With renewed fervor, he held the locket close to the carvings. The air crackled with energy, a sensation almost electric weaving through the atmosphere. The moment the locket pressed against the tree, it pulsed with light, illuminating the carvings with a warmth that felt alive. The shadows surrounding them recoiled. "It's working!" Emma shouted, her excited whisper rising against the backdrop of uncertainty, but even as they felt the surge of hope, the shadows began to whisper louder, a cacophony of voices threatening, persuasive. "You can't stop us, you can't." "Focus!" Jake shouted, locking eyes with the girls. "We can't let them drown out the truth. They thrive on fear." With a deep breath, the girl gripped Jake's arm. "We have to say their names. It's the ancient way. Acknowledge them, and then confront them." "We confront fear with light," Jake said, urging them to join hands. "Let us call upon every shred of strength we have." They closed their eyes, their palms against the warmth emanating from the locket. Together, they spoke, voices strong and united. "We see you. You have no power here. We aren't afraid of your darkness any longer." A palpable shift swept through the air. The shadows writhed, their laughter mixing with shrieks of rage as if the very foundation of their existence was under threat. The locket blazed. The carvings burned bright, a beacon against despair. "Together!" Jake shouted. "We stand together." With each iteration of their mantra, the light grew, spilling outwards, illuminating the encroaching darkness. It swirled furiously, trying to push in, but the circle of light held strong. Somewhere amid the explosive energy, Jake could feel the darkness beginning to dissolve, like mist lifted by the rising sun. The cacophony quieted, morphing into whispers of truth. Names echoed, stories spilled, tales of lives lost, of families torn apart, of shadows yearning to feed. The town's history bled into the present, a tapestry of sorrow that transformed into a clarion call for solidarity. As the last flickers of dark dissolved, a deep, resonating silence enveloped them. The night air lifted. The burdens of fear began evaporating, replaced by a deep sense of liberation. The girl gasped, "They're gone, they're really gone." They opened their eyes, looking around. The tree seemed to pulsate with vibrant life, the scars of pain lost to history. Jake turned, breathless. "Is it over?" Emma smiled, tears shimmering in her eyes. "It feels like we've lifted a weight we didn't know we were carrying." And standing in the embrace of the warm light, they realized that they weren't just survivors, they were a woven thread in Maplewood's ongoing story, a story of healing, facing fear, and coming together as a community. They had confronted the darkness and emerged into the light. Jake looked at his companions, love and gratitude bubbling in his chest. "I'll never forget what you both did tonight. Thank you for your courage." They stood together under the old oak, a circle of hope formed, their hearts beating in unity. As they walked back toward the heart of the town, Jake glanced back once more at the glowing locket in his pocket, knowing they had kindled something that could shine through the shadows, not just for them, but for every soul that called Maplewood home. This was just the beginning, an awakening. And as the stars twinkled above, they knew they could face whatever came next together. Don't let this moment slip away. You need to subscribe now to the channel for more incredible stories like this. Hit that like button right now to fuel the journey ahead. Share this journey, share your feelings in the comments, and let us spread the light together. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Support the channel and keep the stories alive.